Hello. Thanks for
Hi.
joining us today. I'm Gretchen Burns-Bergman, co-founder and executive director of A New Path, which stands for Parents for Addiction Treatment and Healing, and lead organizer of our Moms Unite to End the War on Drugs campaign, which is now an international campaign. And we're here today, the fourth interview during the month of May, as part of our hashtag Moms 2020 Vision Global campaign for compassionate and tolerant drug policy. And this is in honor of Mother's Day around the world. So today I'm going to be joined hopefully by two of our steering committee members of Moms Unite to End the War on Drugs. First, we'll start with Karen Garrison, who is in Washington, D.C., and has been on the steering committee for quite a while. Karen, you have kind of an amazing story of drug war devastation, what I would call criminal justice injustice. Would you mind sharing your story with us?
Well, in 1998, my sons were arrested. They were going to college and they were getting ready to graduate. So in April, they were arrested on a conspiracy drug charge. They were nonviolent, first-time offenders. They did get a chance to walk across the stage, at Howard University and get their degree. But, at that point, they were arrested with people they didn't know anything about. This crack pandemic then, that's kind of taking a low road now. But they were nonviolent first time offenders, like I said, and they were arrested. They did something like a rocket docket in the state of Virginia. Before you knew it, my sons were found guilty and waiting for sentencing. They were sentenced to, Lawrence was sentenced to 11. Well, he did 11 and a half years. Lamont did 13 and a half years due to the reduction of sentencing, which I work really hard with some great organizations. So with them being arrested on that drug charge, conspiracy, and not being guilty, not having any evidence or anything like that, I couldn't understand how they could be convicted. When they said guilty, I fell out on the floor because I just knew, how are you going to do this when they don't even know the people? They go to school every day. The professor came, all this kind of stuff, and I thought it was something different, but it's something that had been going on like 20 years before I found out. So with this going on and my sons being convicted, like that, and given so much time because of the mandatory minimum sentencing, they were given anything 10 to life, and I started working on it because I couldn't believe it. And it seemed like something every day was more and more and more until I got to where I found you. I work for a conservative organization that worked on these mandatory minimum sentencing, but it wasn't enough for the African American. And I feel that, I did make a footprint there because I was there representing the discretion, the overcriminalization and mass incarceration that had taken place. Like when I went, you had me go to United Nations, when I was able to speak where others said that when they went, they weren't letting them speak on mass incarceration. But that was my footprint for that, and finding you was such a wonderful thing. I fought every day. I did something. I wrote something. Email was just becoming available for people that were non-government workers. So I got in at that time when email just started. And so I decided, it wasn't like a decision. It was just something you got to doing. And before you realize you've done this thing, and you're in it. And that's how my story started, because I had my PhD, professional hair designer, and I had my plans, and now only to 20 years or more later, I can even look at those. But, it's like you get into something and it's not right, and you keep on going because the snowball grows as you get into it, because you're not the only one. You're not the only one.
Right. Yeah, this is happening really across the country, and the more we learn about it around the world. To share, Moms United was started as a campaign of a new path to connect mothers, parents that are working in this field because of injustices that they've experienced due to the war on drugs, having a person, a family member that was incarcerated, or having a person criminalized because of drug use, or in my son's case, because they were addicted to heroin. And so my son was declared a criminal at the age of 20 because of possession of pot, which took him 11 years in the system, going in and out of jail, then prison, and back out, and never addressing the problem that he was having, which was a growing dependence on opioids. These stories are rampant. I apologize if I keep looking down. I was trying to help Karen. Karen's on. Sharon Raver to get on in
I
Georgia.
just sent her the link by text, so she should be on in a minute. I sent her the link directly.
Thank
to her
you so
text.
much.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna during the month of May, we had 8 proposals, and this is sort of like, if moms got what moms believe is right for our families, if we were ruling the world, so to speak, this is what we would do. And this is global. We've got moms in the United States, obviously, in Canada, in Mexico, the mothers that disappeared, and in Canada, it's Moms Stop the Harm, and Transform UK, and so we've got moms around the world working on this drug policy reform. So we came up, the 4 countries, US, UK, Canada, and Mexico, with 8 proposals, which we've been sharing with you over the past month. And the past interviews can be seen on Facebook as well. But I want to concentrate on a few of them for this session today. So one of them, the proposals, is to stop criminalizing our children who use substances. And that, I think that's probably the one that rings the truest to both Karen and myself, because of our family's experience. My son at 20 years old was and is a good person, right? He's now got 16 years of recovery, works as a drug and alcohol counselor, but he was labeled a bad boy. He was labeled a bad boy before. He was kicked out of school in 10th grade for having pot in his locker. So he was looked at as, a criminal person. So we want to stop that from happening and address this as a public health and not a criminal justice issue. I am so happy to say that we have Sharon on, and it'll just take a second for her to pop up. And I'm happy to. I know every time we do this, it's a technical challenge, and I keep thinking we're going to get better, but but we will. And one day,
yes,
we'll just down, right?
Just like our children, we're going to get better.
That's right. And they do.
So
yes, they do.
Sharon is doing some amazing work in Georgia, and she has a family story of criminal justice injustice, is what I'm calling it for today. And so, would you please share your story?
Absolutely. People can view my story pretty much all over the place just by Googling my name. I've been talking about it for about 13 years. And what happened is my daughter, Brittany, at 19 years old, she was a college student, invited some friends over just to hang out for the day. And unfortunately, one of the young men got in trouble later that evening for having marijuana in his backpack. And living in Georgia, marijuana is a mortal sin. And so, about 7 hours. Am I getting feedback? Is that me, dear? Should I do something?
No, you sound fine.
All right. So shortly after these young people left and we got into the bed, about 6 or 7 hours later in the middle of the night, I had 8 SWAT and sheriff's office people in my hallway at my bedroom door looking for my 19-year-old daughter. And they took her away after searching the house for 4 hours and finding 1.5 grams of marijuana in her bedroom, and charged her with 2 felonies and a misdemeanor. And I won't go into the details of it, but she was facing 26 years. We were offered all types of plea deals. I did not know about the war on drugs until this happened to me. So don't feel bad if you don't know what's going on and you're listening today, because a lot of times it doesn't happen. You don't understand it until you're involved in it. So today we're just trying to work together with Karen and Gretchen to educate people on how they can get involved in helping their neighbors or their own families. And so I'm glad to be here today and to let y'all know that that was 14 years ago. I've been working on this for a long time. My daughter stands beside me every day in this work, and she made it through, just like Karen and Gretchen's boys did. And I'm appreciative that y'all are all here and allowing us to reach out to y'all today.
Thank you. And you're just bringing up to me that that's something that the three of us share. Not every mother is able to have the support of their kids because of shame and stigma. Luckily, both of my sons, who are working in this field as drug and alcohol counselors, speak out with me as well, which is truly a blessing, right? And we started this journey with a new path 21 years ago, but of course our family's history with it goes quite a bit beyond that because
Right.
I think I explained that my son got kicked out of high school at 10th grade, so that's how far it goes back. And and he's 48 now, so it's been a long decades of this. And the mark that the criminal justice system puts on individuals and families is very hard to get rid of, and creates all kinds of roadblocks to recovery and to having successful lives.
Absolutely.
So I think we hit the first topic pretty well. I'm going to go to the second bullet that I wanted to share, which is implementation of drug policy reform, including decriminalization of drugs for personal use. Years ago, we didn't talk about decriminalization, but we are now. And we know that people shouldn't be criminalized for what they put into their own bodies, right? Even if it's problematic use, they should not be criminalized. They need to get help. So we need tolerance and compassion. I just want to kick this back first to Karen and then to Sharon, but for your comments on that and how that informs the work that you're doing. I know, Karen, you work with both of your beautiful sons now with Mommy Activist and Sons radio show and a lot of other things. So, respond to the decriminalization issue and the work that you're doing.
Well, with that, people have to understand what it is. Like, especially with marijuana now, they're saying in places it's legalized, but it's still not decriminalized. So people have to understand how to maneuver through that. I think that whatever you put in your body is your business. But when it affects other people, then there should be treatment and they should have rehabilitation. But you have to have that when your mindset is right. But every time keep throwing somebody back in jail. And I know some instances here with DC having its own, mandatory minimum sentencing guidelines, you might take 20 years to finish up a 5-year sentence because they would keep sticking you back in jail every time you violated with a dirty urine or something like that. So you never get over and being stigmatized over and over again. New family members take it on, and people in the community you live in, they take it on because every time you're not home or something happens, they figure it's your fault, or something goes on in the neighborhood, it's your fault. But you have to take notice of everything, but you have to start with the foundation of it, and it's the person and the problem.
Yeah.
The treatment, it needs to be treatment, but the mindset has to be right. But if it's not there, if it's not available. I was on a call another day, and they had my question. They turned it around, and I wanted to ask, when you came home after having group therapy in prison, so you go to, you have these, and they send you to jail. You have these these groups they make you go to, or you violate and you get a shot in prison, which messes up everything. And these are group things, so everybody's agreeing and say, yeah, that's right, it happened to me. But what's the solution for that? So I asked, were there people that would deal with them individually coming home because they're going to be diagnosed with this addiction and maybe a mental illness as well. And they come home. Is there someone that will deal with them one-on-one, not a cookie cutter program? And they didn't answer it, of course, but I could see that everybody could read what I wrote. And it wasn't that many people on the call that were asking questions or in the chat, because I checked that stuff out. And so I knew that either they skip over it or they, answer it. And I saw her body change, her sit up straight to give that answer. They said, well, you could answer that. And it was not an answer. The thing about it everywhere, it's not an answer. And everybody doesn't have the Sharon. They don't have the Gretchen. They don't have the Julia. They don't have the Diane. They don't have us everywhere. But there's got to be somewhere where there's something more positive to help them with these issues.
And that's why we're building this movement of moms, so that
Right,
everybody
right.
does have that kind of support system behind it. And that revolving door, it adds to the helplessness and hopelessness, and it's certainly stigmatizing, not just for the individual, but for the family, and
Right.
and which tends to shut people up. So we're always encouraging people that they must speak out about this
Right.
injustice.
Yeah.
So Sharon, would you like to address that? And you're doing amazing work as well in Georgia. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you. It's quite different regardless of what state you're in. The leaders don't seem to want to hear the science behind this and look at programs that are already implemented, quite frankly, across not only just the states, but in other countries. And so decriminalization, we look at in Georgia as being a huge step in the right direction. And we like you mentioned as well, when these people do get arrested, it's difficult for them to move forward and get over their, if they have a substance abuse issue, it's difficult for them to get over it because they really have no future once they've been arrested.
Right.
I'm not saying that they can't make it after they've been arrested, because Karen's sons have, your sons have, and my daughter has. But that is the exception rather than the rule. And that's because they had the mummies and their families, not just the mommies, their aunts, their uncles, their cousins, their fathers around them to support them in their move forward. But like you said, a lot of people don't have that. And so decriminalization keeps that mark off of their record, because as good as expungement is, it's just a small part of it, right? Because when they get their record expunged, that's fantastic. And we do expungement records all over the state of Georgia, but they still have an arrest record. And guess what?
Right.
That doesn't go away. And so that is just as much of as a mark on their future, quite frankly, as the conviction.
And not to mention the self-esteem issue. My son was able to go back because we legalized marijuana in California. And through Prop 64, he was able to go back and expunge his record. But that doesn't expunge the memory of seeing yourself as an ex-felon, seeing
Right.
yourself as a person that doesn't deserve, because you've been told so many times you don't. And to really go back to the core of yourself and believe in yourself. So, I mean, there's the criminal justice system is very traumatizing. And that's something that doesn't go away in a blink of an eye. It's something that has to be worked on. And,
especially for the person that is behind bars and in that cage, but also for their extended family.
You bet. Yes, absolutely.
Because those conversations are shared on those telephone calls. From the feds, you get 15 minutes. From the state, you get the JPEG call or whatever it is, and you have a certain amount of minutes. And those days, the person you call home to may be the only person you can vent. And then we share that experience with them.
And it's financially crazy what they charge for you to talk to your baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that different states are working on that issue right now because that's another injustice.
Right.
But right now we're in the midst of COVID-19, and we're calling this a dual crisis because it is. Those
Hmm.
people of overdose as well as COVID-19. The people most affected are those people behind bars, those people on the streets, the homeless. So there's been efforts to release people from prison that we've been involved in California, certainly, and I know it's happening across the United States. The problem is, how are we sending them out? How well prepared are they? What are they going to get the services they need to address an addiction? Are they going to have a home to go to? Do they have a community, a supportive community, ready to help them? I mean, the problem is that with the overcrowding of prisons, they're like petri dishes of spreading COVID-19, right? So we've got to humanely release them. I'm happy to say that we're working now with our sheriff's department, and we're going to supply Narcan to the people coming out of jails in
Oh,
Davis
wonderful.
County. That's in the works and should be happening in the next couple of weeks. So there's a more receptivity right during this crisis, um, but these things should have happened long ago. And I should say, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know what Narcan is, it's a safe drug that can quickly reverse an accidental opioid overdose, and it's such a safe drug that we've been giving it out to syringe exchanges, parents groups, sober livings, treatment facilities for since 2014. I want to go on to the last one, proposal of the eight that is, I think that the kind of the crux of everything that we're asking for is promote maternal values, right? Um, uh, Listen to your own maternal instincts. They serve you well, and go back and believe in them. Reject tough love and the drug war, which is a war waged on our loved ones. Tough love is does not it doesn't resonate with what's tough about love, right? So that goes along with the failed policy of codependency, which wasn't based on fact or science, and it's something that we as parents bought, that we were being codependent when we were really fighting for the lives of our children, right? Giving them a chance,
Right.
trying to empower them so that they could move forward and have a real life. So I'm with that said, and I got to say my spiel on it. I'm going to go to you, Karen, for your response to that.
Well, I say every mother has their own instinct, and nobody knows their child better than the mother or the father. And when they're going through this, at some points you do have to say no to let them know that that's not right. But the tough love is going to always exist in your mind. But when you do tough love, you have to have no regrets with it. Have no regrets. You do what you do, but you want to make sure you do something if they need help that will make them better or give them an idea, even if it doesn't work that time. Later on, like when they sit in prison and they begin to think, they remember those things that you instilled in them. So you have to use your instinct. And I guess that's part of tough love. And it's a old thing that's not going to ever die, but you have to remember, that person. You know their heart. And when they get into their solitude, they come back to that real person that you know. And that's what you work with. Sometimes an incarceration may not be the happy moment, but it's a time where you got them. That time you got their ear. You got their heart in your hand once again to help out. And that's the way I feel about that. I feel about that. Guilty or innocent. A child in prison is a child in prison. And I don't mean child. I guess you always think your kids, but a person, a human in prison is a human in prison. They all have to do the same thing no matter how they got there.
Right. You're describing true love, not tough love, which is
Oh, yeah.
another
I
one.
don't have, the tough love was always there for me. because I had two boys that were my size when they were 11 years old. So I knew I had to instill some tough love. But you have to use your instinct, and it does come to play tough love. At sometimes you have to put your foot down.
Well, but I think that's setting strong boundaries. I still don't like the word tough.
Yeah,
Yes, definite setting boundaries and steering them constantly in the right direction and reminding them what the difference between right and wrong and all those things.
yeah,
But tough love is particularly when you're dealing with substance use disorder
yeah,
is not helpful. I'm always there to steer you into treatment. I'm always
right,
there to once again say, you have a family that loves you. Let's try again. And as you know, that was 19 treatment facilities for my younger son.
yeah.
Oh,
But it worked. It
People
worked.
said, give up on him. Well, I knew
Right.
giving up meant he was going to die, and I wasn't going to do that. And
Mhm.
luckily, he's alive today, and that's not because of me, but that is partially because there was a compassionate family
Yeah.
and community to come back to when he found his way to recovery.
Right.
I'd love your thoughts on this, Sharon.
absolutely. Well, I'm one of the lucky ones that never had to, neither one of my daughters ever had substance abuse issues because, Brittany was my only one, and that was just a fluke of a SWAT team taking her away, right? So
Yeah.
that was more based around the criminal justice issue of it. But I have grown up with uncles and cousins and nieces and nephews that have struggled with it.
Uh-huh.
So I have been the loving aunt, the loving cousin to those people that are in my family. And so I just want to point out to other people that are maybe watching the call that this is not just about mommies and daddies. These children that have these issues need their community. They need the rest of their extended family to show them and steer them in the right direction and let them know on the daily basis that they're worth it and that we're here to support their journey, that we can't walk it for them, but we'll hold their hand as they do. And so give them the opportunity to make their decisions, specifically when they're older, right? It's different when you're dealing with a 14-year-old that has a substance abuse disorder as opposed to a 24-year-old. You have to treat them with the respect when they're older that it's their decision whether they want to get well or not, right? And that you're there to love and support them and never, ever, ever, like you just said, Gretchen, give up on them. Because when there is that love surrounding them, that true love that they feel, most of the time they will make it out eventually. And you just got to hold on until that happens and smile every time you see them. Because if you start yelling at them, what they're going to do is they're going to retreat back into that addiction. And you just got to act like you don't even recognize they're doing it. Just love them and they'll come back. They'll come back if they can.
I can't imagine a better way to end this session. That embodies everything we feel about that constant love. And there's days when they're not so lovable. Let me tell you, when they're in the midst of their disease. But always believing that they're in there and that they need help. And the last thing they need is to feel hopeless and that there's no way out of the maze. There's always got to be a lifeline for them to be pulled out of the maze.
Can
Um,
I add one more thing real quick? For those people that are here, do not let people call you because you love your loved one so much. Do not let them use the stigmatized word of enabler. You're there as a supporter, not an enabler.
Absolutely. And I know you're doing great things, Karen, with your radio show and the way you get the word out. And Sharon's actually running for office, and
Yeah.
so she's out there charging and making a difference. So we want you to go back, trust your maternal instincts, maternal, paternal, I don't care, family instincts to love and support your child, and it's your child for life, right? My children are in their 40s, so but they're always going to be my kids, right? So during the month of May, honor moms in honor of Mother's Day. Plant forget-me-not seeds. This is the end of our series for this month, but we're going to be having monthly chats because there's work being done all over the country and, in fact, all over the globe to really change the global to end the global war on drugs. Which is so damaging to our families. So watch for the interview in June, and thank you for watching, and thank you for joining us. Share this with others. Bye.
Hi. Thank you.
Bye.